Right, we are going to ask Kevin, Rob, David, Lisa, Rod, Craig. We've got quite a team coming up.
Through the chair, if we just do, we'll give the Auckland Council organisation a very quick overview of that first, and then we'll ask the individual teams to come up.
That's all right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, so good morning, councillors. So as Kevin said, we'll give a very quick overview over the council entity results, and then we'll be inviting Craig Hobbs from Regulatory to come up and give an update, Lisa Tocker and Rod Sheridan to talk about community investment, and Rob Irvine and Kirk Archibald to talk about the savings across the council entity. So I thought I'd run very quickly just through some highlights that we pulled out from the report. Again, there are lots of highlights throughout the report, but these are three that we've pulled out. The picture at the top is the February 2019 graduation ceremony for the Kia Puawai program, which takes rangatahi from South Auckland and trains them up to be recruited into our contact centre. This is a program that we run alongside the Solomon Group and Work and Income New Zealand, and it's been getting fantastic results, getting people from South Auckland to work in our contact centre. The second picture is of Te Manua out at Westgate, which was opened, a new multi-purpose community facility. It's kind of the new way of providing community services out there, combining a lot of different things into one facility. And the third highlight we've highlighted is the work that went on around the Christchurch mosque attacks. So alongside the remembrance ceremonies, there were lots of things happening with staff networks, and we thought that was worthy of pulling out the way that we supported the Muslim community after those horrendous attacks in Christchurch. Moving quickly on to overall service performance and the LT performance measures. We measured 31 measures over the quarter. Of those, 18 reached targets and 9 did not. A lot of those that did not are in the consenting area. So as you know, we've been under target for both timeliness and satisfaction measures. That's been getting better, and I'm pretty sure that Craig will perhaps allude to those when he does his presentation on regulatory. I've pulled out 3 measures there to just note. First of all, in libraries, we've had declines in the number of internet sessions that are happening there. It's declined by 5%, which equates to about 230,000 different sessions. The interesting thing there is this is perhaps due to lots of people now having their own Wi-Fi services on their phones. So there's a lessened need for that service across some libraries. But the interesting thing about this story is in some areas, especially the lower socioeconomic areas, there's been a slight increase in that usage. So it's an interesting story where overall the performance looks like it's declining, but when you get into the details, you'll see that there's still quite a need in certain communities for free Wi-Fi sessions in libraries. And the other 2 measures are just ones that we've done quite well against. So we are complainant satisfied of the noise control services. That's exceeding targets. If you remember last year, that was one of the measures that we had issues with, so it's good to see that. And also, there was quite a bit of news around the grading of food premises. So percentage of food premises that moved from a D or E grade to an A, B or C grade when revisited, that's met the targets. So that's good to see too. So I'll hand over to Kevin now, who will just take you through some high-level financial results.
Yes, yep, think.
Okay, no, well, I'll allow you, Councillor Cooper. Yep.
The internet target. So in terms of targets, if you're finding that you've got some areas that it's not an issue for, why would you be pushing to make people have free stuff if they don't want it? Would you modify those targets in certain areas and just keep or increase targets in other areas rather than just having a blanket target, or is it already refined or bespoke for each area?
Yeah, so those targets were set as part of the last long-term plan, and the targets were actually set based on the previous performance. So it certainly, as you point out, it doesn't make sense to hold those targets at the same levels based on kind of what we said in the RTP. So the next RTP will revisit that. That's correct, yeah.
And in particular Wi-Fi. I'm hoping that even though there's been a decline regionally, I'm hoping that there is no decision being made around the Wi-Fi as a result being either reduced the times when you have an increase in the low socioeconomic areas. So I just wanted to make that point. I just hope we don't end up doing that. So, yeah,
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
thank you.
Carry on, Kevin.
Yeah, look, thank you. This is 2 slides very quickly. You'll see some pretty strong parallels. This is the Auckland Council organisation, comparing it to the group ones that were presented by Robert, Ross, John and the team and Francis before. Look, direct revenue, it's favourable at this stage, $16 million up on where we anticipated to be at this stage. 8 million of that, just over half of it is driven by the regulatory services. Yep, there's higher volume of resource consents. We know there's a pickup there. They're also becoming more complex, which leads to more costs, accordingly more fees coming in. And there's also been a concerted effort to clear some of the building backlogs we've had there. So some really good effort in that regulatory area. The direct expenditure side, yep, that's favourable as well by $12 million. So we're $12 million less than where we anticipated at this point in time. Primary one there is actually staff costs. We know we opened with quite a few vacancies at the start of the year. That's actually flowed through even to the 9-month point. So 10 million favourable there. Obviously, some things still have to occur, so there has been some outsourcing. So we are $3 million over in the outsourced cost area. We've brought some resourcing on board to fill those gaps. But all very positive. And on the capital expenditure side, oops. Again, look very similar to what you saw for the group. The size, the sheer scale of the program this year, this is definitely a delivery stage. $72 million more compared to the same period last year, so 25% up. And the key contributors there are community facilities, infrastructure and environment. It is the real delivery stage. And if you compare it to budget, it's 86%. Group was 85%, so it's very similar again. Some of the delays, the majority of them you can see there are just fundamentally based on timing. We've got America's Cup, AC36 there is the largest one. We've also got ICT and some of our corporate property strategy rollout is just slightly slower than anticipated. So all understandable as far as the delays go. So that's the financials, just 2 quick slides. Like I say, very similar to the conversations you've had on the group level. What we'd now like to move into is those strategic focus areas, and we'll ask various people to come up, as David mentioned earlier. So unless there's any other questions on the opening piece. Nope.
No, let's move on.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Sas.
Open Rod.
Kia ora koutou. Lisa and I will present this today. Ian's off sick, so we'll go through this, and Lisa will talk about the MOS and our recovery and how we work together across the region on that.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. As Rod has introduced me, Lisa Toka from Customer and Community Services. There's some highlights that you've got there for the community area. The first one that we would like to talk about was the council-wide response to the tragedy down in Christchurch. We have a letter that I think it's really great to be able to read this letter. It's on behalf of the South Auckland Muslim Association from the President Abdul Ahmed, and it's a really great letter to share that Ian asked us to share with you that actually speaks to the voice of that community and how they felt, and wanted to thank both the councillors and the Auckland council staff for the work that they did in behind the scenes. As mentioned in the first bullet point, that was an important moment across all of New Zealand, but in particular in Auckland, where staff from across community facilities, events, libraries captured both the letters and cards that people left in various parks all over Auckland, also in the libraries and the memory books. They've captured all those and they've recorded them so that in the future we have those statements to go back to, which was an expression of our community's voice in that particular moment. But I'll quickly read the letter that the President asked us to share. He thanks Council for their amazing support. He describes the services of Auckland Council as having been extraordinary, and we genuinely appreciate how fast you organised everything for us within 4 hours' notice. He's referring specifically to the burial services. We appreciated your services with traffic management, parking and all other related matters that you organised us for to carry out the burial services. Over 4,000 people attended the services, which was the largest burial service ever held in our community. It was a success purely because of the range of council departments that got in behind, from parking, ushers, event staff, community facilities teams, governance support, the whole crew. Even to the point of providing fresh bottled water for people during the service because of the impact of them and the trauma they were experiencing. This is a mark of people's greatness and humanity and a deep desire to do something different and something special for the victims of the Christchurch shooting. This tells us we are one. So we did want to share that with you. It is it's a great communication, it's a great story, and it's a great example of us all working together. Couple of other quick highlights. Rob will talk about Waiuku Trails, just 3 and 4, just pointing out very quickly that Auckland Paths and Kura Heritage Online are 2 examples of our communities and local boards and elected members giving better access to existing public resources to our communities through a digital service. So Auckland Paths, great paths right across Auckland. When we put campaigns in around those, and at the moment we've got one to showcase the how we express cultural identity through our parks and arts. We promote different paths and different ways of experiencing those paths through Auckland Paths Online. The aim was to get 10,000 hits on the council website to promote that as a new service, and they hit 42,000 in the first month. So, and the stats on that service have continued to stay at that level, reinforced, and they tend to go up when we put in a campaign like Matariki in and around it. And of course, Kura Heritage Online, you will have seen that through the local board Facebook feeds and the council Facebook feeds. That's a really important, now widely available digital service that is the heritage items, the collections, the photographs that are part of how our community has expressed itself over time. So that's, as I said, that's an example of us trying to create better use, better access to the things that our communities already own as a public space, a public service. I'll hand over to Rod now to cover a couple of his areas.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that, and I appreciate the reading of the letter from the MOS, because I tell you that a lot of staff came together on that day across our organisation and did some magnificent things and made things happen for the communities. Look, the sod at Waiuku Trails, which is a community-led project from Franklin Local Board, and that has been a huge success on the way that the organisation, we should be empowering communities to do this sort of work. You know, the community made great contact out there with Fletcher Steel, for the steel company, got steel. We got community people there to do this work, but we're not easy to deliver this sort of work as an organisation, and this is a great example of how we can do it. We used AIM, our own City Park Services, as the project managers. We used project delivery, and look, the community is overwhelmed with the outcome of this project. In fact, we have a letter from Andrew Baker from out there, and I won't read the whole letter, but he just says how proud they are of this project, and we have empowered volunteers, and that it shows strong community engagement, and that, you know, he believes that would win an award at a local government in New Zealand. So look, I think it's been something to be very celebrated for, and it's something that we are working on. How do we actually get this model rolled back across the rest of our local boards to empower our communities to do this great work that we're doing? I will talk about a couple of the risks there in capital procurement space. We've just heard Barry how much they've got capital works going on around there, and then we've got capital works as well, and the cost of being capital work, and how we actually make sure we're getting good value for money, because the prices are increasing. So we've worked with each local board, just as to update you all. We have done a 3-year works program with each local board. and we are about to go back and get that signed off by the local boards, their business meetings, and we're working with them to make sure that we have transparency of the 3 years so we can actually bundle work together, make sure that we're making better decisions around how we get best value for that. So that's how we're mitigating some of those risks. Vandalism is a big thing for us across the region, in parks and slides, and sometimes it can actually close a park or close a playground. So we are working on insurance and how do we have a fund so we can actually make sure we get these things open again, but also reporting the vandalism to make sure that we are working with communities to actually try and stop this antisocial behaviour across the region. Maintenance contracts, it's important to say that maintenance across the region is around 92%. So it's at some of the highest we've seen. In fact, we have a letter here from David P. Jones QC and I won't again read the whole letter, but it's on Albert Park and the beauty of the gardens. He says this is a testament to good planning, hard work of the people involved in maintenance and investing in a wonderful oasis in the city centre. My wife and I thank you, council workers, for all your hard work. So we're getting lots of feedback now from the community around the work that's actually happening out there in the community. So I think we all want to be very proud of some of the work that's happened out there. Really here on the key programs of work below being renewals, growth program, land acquisition are all on track, and obviously streetscapes, which is the work coming in from Auckland Transport, which we've brought the berms in on the 1st of April, and on the 1st of July we bring all the city centre cleaning in and rubbish bins, public rubbish bins across the region, which we're just transitioning to make sure that happens, and I assure you we'll all see an uplift in cleanliness across the region once we get that happening. The Sports Investment Fund has just had a little bit of delay in getting started, but I know that they brought a paper to the committee.
So the interim allocations have been made for this financial year, and this refers to the criteria and the allocation methodology that will be embedded from that investment fund for the remaining 9 years of the LTP.
Yep. Thank you.
All good. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Lisa. I think it all doesn't need any further explanation, but we'll hear Councillor Newman.
Thank you and good morning. Firstly, thank you for the good work that is taking place, and I acknowledge the challenge in the space that you're operating in, as well as the very significant attempts to address some of the challenges in relation to consistency of service and the standard of service across the region. I did want to just raise, if I may, Chair, two comments because I just want to get feedback. Firstly, in relation to cemetery space, I acknowledge the challenge in relation to the relationships in the cemetery space. It's a difficult area. But one thing that I have picked up from my discussions with staff in the south, at MMG in particular, is a challenge of being able to get from community facilities timely cut through in the procurement of infrastructure. For example, a generator that's taken 6 months to get. When power goes out in the chapel, if someone's in the middle of a service, we've got power out in the chapel because we've had issues with the vector lines there. The generator obviously hasn't clicked in. It's taken 6 months to get that sorted out. The catafalque in the chapel isn't currently flush, so you put the casket on the catafalque and it's actually lowering before the committal. It's really bad look. So what I would ask is that there needs to be a degree of ownership around getting facilities to be able to respond very quickly to the needs of the cemeteries management team to procure minor infrastructure that's necessary to ensure that the chapel works well. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
But no, it's noted.
Okay. I also had a comment regarding the ollies. So is that you? Not you.
Through the chair, I think we're having another session on these in 3 weeks' time, aren't we?
Yep.
I'll save it for then because maybe you will have some different information for me at that time. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. I've been to Manuera this morning.
Councillor Sayers.
Thanks, Ross. It should be a fairly quick question, Rod. Hey, just trying to gain a level of confidence around the changeover to the rural sector and their berms and drainage and swale cleaning, with Auckland Transport, and the changeover into the new agreements. Has that been, have you got a level of coordination happening there, Rod, that you feel comfortable with? And if not, I can talk to you offline about it.
Yeah. Through the chair, yeah, we have got coordination, but happy to have a talk to you about it. Yeah.
Yep, thank you, Rod, and thank you, Lisa. There's no more questions.
Thank you.
Councillor Hills, wait a minute.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
Sorry. It's sort of my same question that I always put out there, but I just want to put it out there again. When we are completing, the percentage, we talk about the percentage of budget instead of the percentage of projects, still I'm a little worried about that. And also, what are we doing to forward plan when, projects sit in the local board budgets at 200 grand, and then when it comes back, it's 400 because of cost escalation and other valid reasons, but they kind of come to us and say, we're being told we can't do this, we have to push it out. How are we recalibrating sort of everything if that's potentially what we're going to keep coming across if things jump up in cost, or if they get delayed 2 years, they're no doubt going to go up in cost. So I'm just worrying about the future. I'm seeing a lot of things renewed, which is fantastic, but what are we doing in that kind of space when we're telling local boards, well, sorry, it's double the price, we've got to wait another 2 years or something?
Through the chair, so the capital budget, while it's based on the local board area, we do manage it from a regional basis. So we do have unders and overs that help us, balance out and bring projects forward and deal with those over costs. We remember when we put a project into a program, it comes with an estimated cost, and as you get closer and closer to delivering that project, you obviously understand the cost more to it. To be fair, I think we have got that a lot better than we had in the past since we've done that. We asked, when I talked about the 3-year program, the local boards signing off their 3-year program, what we're saying is that we will deliver this program over the 3 years, because annually there's projects, as you just rightly said, start and stop. You can't get consented. There's a whole lot of things. So what we're actually doing when we're doing our, we're actually starting 130% of the program. So we're actually getting to sign off projects in year 2, because what we can then do is make sure we can slow the program down if we're going to, oversee our budget, or speed the projects up. It's hard to start things when you're actually 6 months into the financial year and a project can't start. It's hard to fill that gap. So we're actually managing it on 100. Nicholas shouldn't be listening to me like this, because it's a finance thing, but we actually start 130% of the budget for each local board, and then we can slow it down, because we know from history that around 30% of our projects don't get completed in 1 year. So it's how do we actually manage it from 3 years. So what we're saying to local boards is you get your 3-year program delivered over a 3-year period. This year, because your point's right, some local boards will get 110 or 15%, some will get 70 or 80% of the projects delivered through the reasons I've just spoken about. But over the 3 years, they'll get their 3-year program delivered.
I think maybe it's about how we get that back to the local boards, or have it a bit clearer, because there is a bit of, well, this isn't done, or this is, but if there's valid reasons, I mean, I'm sure that gets put to them at the workshops, but as a councillor, it's not clear to us, and we then they come to us and sort of say it's our fault or whatever, but we actually can't drill into why or what the costs are, or what the breakdowns are. So if there's any way to improve the reporting so we can go, this is why or whatever, but I don't know, yeah.
So through the chair, your point's taken. I will just say that it's the local boards that prioritise the program. They put the program together. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Thank you, Lisa. Councillors, we have regulatory savings update, water quality program, natural environment program, and waste, and we are 3/4 of an hour behind now. Oh, okay. I'll take that back. The last 3 are actually we only have regulatory and savings update, but we're still 3/4 of an hour behind. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Craig.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, tēnā koutou katoa. I have Kerry Tasker with me, who's our business partner from Commerce and Finance as well. So if we have any curly questions, we can answer those. Just picking up the highlights, I'll take my report as read. We are tracking well financially. We're currently looking at a surplus against budget of $7.7 million in terms of revenue, giving us a bottom line return or benefit of $3.2 million. That will dissipate a little bit to the financial year end. We're looking at about a $1.8 million surplus against budget to the year end. We've just recently launched Te Pātatai, which is our Maori responsiveness program, and we're running some cultural value assessment workshops currently with Mana Whenua, which is also very positive. In terms of building consents, we're pretty much meeting all of our IANZ accreditation requirements in terms of statutory timeframes. I'll give you the CEO performance or CEO target performance on timeliness at the moment. So currently we're looking at building consents processed within 40 working days to the end of March. We're sitting at 60% year to date, which is on target, exactly on target. Building consents, new dwellings within 40 working days, we're below target. Unfortunately, we're at 58% versus a CEO target of 75%. And for CCCs on new dwellings within 40 working days, our target is 80%. We're currently sitting at 71%. All of those metrics are tracking up, but we haven't got there obviously in two of them yet, but we're working hard in that space. We've been doing some really good collaborative work within our licensing and regulatory compliance area. The Kauri Dieback example, where we had 100 staff from across regulatory services in the Waitakaris over Easter, was really positive. We've also been working with Healthy Waters around the PR issues as well. So there's some really good collaboration going on in that space. And we're also working on our timeliness within resource consents. That is an area that does concern us, and we're looking at trying to improve that. In terms of risks, timeliness, again, biggest challenge. We do need to keep pushing. The IANZ accreditation is hanging over us, and that is obviously something that we're focusing on to the end of November. There are process and system improvements that could be made in that space. We can't do that until we get the IANZ accreditation out of the way, because it would slow us down even more, but there will be some changes post-November. Just draw attention to the committee around the competitive employment market and the issue we have with the establishment of the Housing and Urban Development Authority. There's some ads in the paper this week for senior management positions at $185,000 salary, which is significantly more, or relatively significantly more than what we pay people of the equivalent calibre in council. That's for an entity that hasn't been established as yet, doesn't have building consent accreditation, and yet they're out looking for staff. Now, I think everyone in here is aware of the concerns or the issues we have trying to find staff. It's just going to create even more angst, and I think it's something that we need to take quite seriously in terms of a response back to the Crown around what's happening in that space. I mentioned of the Imperial Homes issue we have at Hobsonville Point with the affordable homes issue. There is a meeting this week amongst staff with the Imperial Homes staff to do some more investigative work determining whether or not we take a prosecution in that space, but that is an ongoing piece of work and quite contentious. We've also been doing a lot of work around reducing our invoices backlog. We should never, in my opinion, should never have gotten to the position we've got into, but we haven't been chasing outstanding debt, and we've been doing a lot of work in that space. As of March, we had a $5.9 million backlog of debt, of outstanding invoices and resource consents. We've now got that down to about 2.7, so there's some good work going on over time. We'll continue to focus on that as well. And data integrity is an area that we are really looking to work in as well. We just need to tidy up our data so we can make good business decisions based on the information we have to hand. In terms of our key program of works, our meeting demand program is working quite nicely. We are, and again, I know I'm reporting on the third quarter, but talking a little bit about what's happening now. We have established a new strategic plan that we're developing, and that will, it's around consenting made easy. We put $6 million into that some time ago. We want to see some value out of that, so we've revived that, and we're looking to revisit and make sure that that does actually work for us. So while meeting demand will continue, it'll be rolled into the Consenting Made Easy program. SAP Hybris, that's been a success story in terms of efficiencies achieved. And just to give you some numbers, so dogs, in terms of applications online, we've reduced our application time by 5 minutes per application. When you're talking 100,000 dogs, that's not a bad saving across the year. Food average time for lodgement has been reduced by 18 minutes. And in alcohol and special managers licences, we've reduced our average time on an application for a special licence by 20 minutes and by 15 minutes for managers licences. So some really good achievements and savings out of SAP Hybris. Customer enabled compliance within licensing and regulatory compliance is also, we've made some changes in there where we've now got 6,000 of requests for service that used to go to our investigation team going to our response team. So we're getting to these issues quicker, cutting them off at the nub of the issues first up instead of letting it work through a process. And in terms of Project Inspect, that's again another efficiency project. It's an online app. It's allowed our building consent officers to get out, also inspectors to get out and basically work a lot more effectively on site. It's saving them a lot of time. It's also allowing us to capture a lot more data on site as well. So a very, very good app that's been developed in-house, and that just won the overall Team of the Year award at the Te Pau Awards. So we're very, very proud of that initiative. So, Mr. Chair, I'll leave it there and happy to take any questions.
Okay. Regards invoices that are outstanding, do we then have also applications for new consents from some of the people who haven't paid their previous bills?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Regards the invoices outstanding, which are obviously for previous consents, I mean, are you cross-referencing that with whether those same people, companies are applying for new consents at the same time? And are they being reminded that?
Yeah, so our processes are a lot more efficient now. We're basically, we're taking a commercial perspective. We need to be invoicing as the work's done and chasing up those invoices.
And I have no doubt you're more than aware that the meeting resource and building consent statutory timeliness is a huge issue, and we're probably going to get another tag on our accounts from the Auditor General Office this year. So.
In terms of the audit work that's going on from Audit New Zealand, I can give you the latest stats. We of the 759 sample building consents that have been investigated and the 1,077 resource consents, we've basically had a 29.4% return rate just with queries on building consents and a 5.7% return on resource consents. So still some questions in there, but generally we've certainly improved from where we were.
Sorry, Councillor Newman.
Good morning.
Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you for the very good work that you're doing. I want to, if I may, request some information. If you don't have it now, if you could maybe get it back to me by the end of the day or something. The work that the animal management enforcement staff are doing in the south has been superb. And the most appalling situations that they have to work in sometimes. They are professional and they always bat for the animals if they can to obviously achieve a good, happy outcome. What I wanted to get, if I may, is the raw number in the Manukau shelter to date, the raw number of adoptable dogs that have been adopted, the raw number of dogs that had to be euthanised, and an approximate number of hours that have had to be spent on investigations associated with enforcement. So I'm happy if you don't have that information right now, but if that could be emailed through to me at the earliest possible moment, I'll be grateful. Thank you.
Councillor Newman. Yes, I don't have that detail other than I can tell you of those dogs that we have determined are adoptable, 100% are out. Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're also very proud of the fact that we have managed to register 96% of known dogs this year, which is the highest performance rate we've ever had. So we're very pleased with that.
And the reason why I ask that information, Chair, is that given that the Manukau shelter frankly has to do more work than anywhere else in the region, often for the worst reasons, I want that information so I can just go and explain to my constituents precisely the impact of people being irresponsible when they take ownership of animals. So thank you in anticipation of getting that information.
Thank you, Councillor Newman.
Councillor Sayers, just to wrap this session up, and then we have one more, which is on savings.
Thanks, Ross. My question is just around the response back to the Crown around those salaries that are being offered. Is that something that we're being asked to do, or is it something that's underway?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Sayers, I only found out about these salaries last night. It's something that I want to try and develop a response to bring back to, I think it would need to come back to you for your input, but I think it's something we do need to take very seriously because it is a big concern.
Okay. Right, well, thank you, Craig, and thank you, Kerry, much appreciated. And we have Debbie and Rob. And Kurt, is it? Yep, okay. Right.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier, this item was referred from the 6th June APR VFM committee. It covers how Auckland Council is progressing on its savings target for the period from 1 July to 31 March. So at the APR VFM committee, we basically gave an update on the overall financials, how it's progressing, as well as we had a update on the really good progress that has been done in terms of the automation of the change of address on the dog licensing process. And then also, then we had Kirk providing an update on the utilities management. So today we're just going to keep it nice and brief, and we'll give you a quick update on the numbers, and then Kirk will give a brief update in terms of the progress on the utilities management. So we do. Okay. So basically, in terms of progress, well, through the LTP, we set a target of 23 million for this financial year, and that equates to, when you look at a cumulative effect, of about 565 million over the 10 years that we need to achieve as an organisation in terms of hard savings. On top of that, we're also working in terms of cost avoidance and benefits through things like the capital program, through programs such as the value for money stream, which has a further 500 million targeting over the next 10 years. So for the 9 months to date, we've achieved 18.2 million of the 23 for this year in terms of the hard savings, and we're very confident in terms of achieving the remaining 23 for the remaining course of the year. How we've achieved that? We've achieved that through what we've done is we've sort of categorised it through 6 main work streams, and that's been achieved then through areas such as procurement, organisational design, technology, how we're looking at increasing our non-rates revenue, as well as just really containing costs and being very, I guess, focused on our cost management, as well as the value for money stream, which you hear quite a bit through the APR VFM committee. So it gives it just a good sense of the spread of where we're achieving our savings. And with that, I'll hand over to Kirk, who will talk about utilities management.
Thank you. So picking up on utilities, on one area where we've been achieving savings. So from about 2011 through to 2017, we've had a fairly long-term trend of increases in the amount we spend on electricity, water and gas of about 7% a year. At face value, looking at that, you could say that it was to do with growing investment, our growing asset portfolio, and also increasing costs, particularly around water. But underlying that increase was actually, there were, as well as those increases in capital spend in our portfolio, there were some deficiencies in the way that we were managing utilities. So to address this in 2016, which is about where that orange, or a bit after when that orange line starts in the graph, we set up programs to reduce utility consumption and improve the way we managed our accounts and our suppliers. And in 2017, we had a electricity procurement across the group as well that provided an opportunity. So in terms of this program, overall we've been quite successful. So despite our growing asset base, we've managed to turn around a 7% increase a year to a 6% per year decrease. And so in terms of underlying this, we've been able to reduce the amount of energy and we consume, and also make and flatten the amount of water that we're consuming. And we've achieved that through our collaboration with the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority, in particular Corporate Properties Workspace project in terms of consolidating staff into a fewer number of buildings and also making more efficient technology available for them. And we've also reduced a lot of waste and so therefore a lot of consumption through addressing meter access issues which cause overestimates and addressing water leaks and also transferring accounts away from council that should be responsibility of tenants. So we got a lot of support from Watercare to achieve this in terms of their help for investigating all of our complex sites, and we also have ended up hiring an additional 2 permanent staff, and we had 2 fixed term staff go through and check every single one of the 4,000 utility accounts we're responsible for. So if we can go next slide, and again. Oh, it should alter the graph a little. There we go. So if you overlay consumption in those yellow and grey lines on the right hand side, you can see that our energy consumption has come down quite significantly and our water consumption's come down a little bit, which is good. And so lastly, in terms of achieving the savings, in 2017 we ran an electricity procurement across the group, which was led by Auckland Transport, Community Facilities and our procurement department. And essentially through taking a slightly different approach to what we normally would and having long-term contracts, particularly with all our smaller users, we managed to reduce our total electricity costs by about 9%. So all of those actions and activities are reflected in this orange line and our decreasing trend in utility spend despite the growing asset base.
Congratulations to you and your team, Kurt, because this is just fantastic savings. This is very significant figures. There's no question about it. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right. How efficient is Auckland Council? Is it actually operating at $293 million less than the combined councils prior to amalgamation? It is.
Yeah, so through the chair, as at the end of the 2017-18 year, it's this target, well, the savings achieved since amalgamation was an annualised figure of 270 million, and then if you add on the savings target that we've achieved this year, which is 23 million, then we're up at that 293.
Yep.
Thank you. I think that's a figure that everyone should remember. Thank you. Well done.
And just regards another important thing that Kurt really mentioned there in his presentation is again working together among the group. We are making headway. Not only we've heard about insurance, we're hearing about utility savings, and there are other things happening. So there are no further questions. So thank you, Kurt, Debbie, Rob, and we are going to take a 10-minute break, and then we have Auckland Transport. We are running half an hour behind now, so we've picked up a bit of time, but we will have 10 minutes, a good 10 minutes.